Hey, everybody, welcome to Moment of Clarity. Let's talk about yet another innocent black man being gunned down by police. The latest one, as you know, and by the way, you probably got most of this from mainstream media, but I'll give you the stuff the mainstream media won't talk about in a second. But as you know, his name was, or maybe no, Jacob Blake in Wisconsin, shot 7 times in the back with his kids in the car. And apparently, according to reports, he was the one trying to stop whatever dispute was going on. And he's clinging to life. At least the last I heard was that he's still alive in the hospital in critical condition. So you can get most of that from the mainstream media. By the way, there's also an article at Mint Press saying that police have been put on paid vacation, which isn't that nice that they're one of the few still getting paid vacation right now in the middle of economic collapse. But you nearly kill a man, and here's some paid vacation. Have a good time. Go out to the nice beaches in the Caribbean and enjoy yourself. But so all that, the general story you can get from the mainstream media, but they cannot, no matter how many times they have these discussions, they can't actually get to the heart of the matter. Almost ever. They can't get to the core of what's going on here, which is a completely insane policing system that shouldn't exist, that is based on, started with slave patrols and is mainly meant to keep the class hierarchy from being threatened in America. As I've covered before, our police here kill about 1,000 people a year. They're basically, since 2005, I believe 3 officers have successfully been prosecuted for murder out of tens of thousands of murders. So basically, they can kill with impunity, and the police state we have should not exist. It should not exist like this, and they can't have this discussion on mainstream media. They can't have it on Fox News. They can't have it on CNN or NBC or ABC. The closest they'll get is discussing defunding the police a little bit. Maybe we'll cut back a little bit. I think they cut back a little bit in Seattle, a little bit maybe in New York City. But that's the closest they can get to having this discussion, which is not having the discussion. It's slightly defunding the police doesn't really change anything. It might slightly decrease the number killed, but not by much. And then the body cams is another thing. Oh, let's put body cams on them. And sure, that helps at times to know just the horrible shit that is going on. But as we've also learned, they're quite good at turning off those body cams right as the shit gets real. Funny thing that the body cams just never seem to catch most of the action. Besides the fact, these are thousands, across the country, millions of often steroid abusing madmen with guns, men and women, and we've said, let's put cameras on them. Imagine that under any other scenario where someone was killing innocent people and you were like, okay, we'll videotape it happening. That's not an answer. Maybe it's better than not videotaping, but it's not an answer. But I think something we need to get down to, and I've also covered how cops, what they really do in their day-to-day. I mean, the average for a police officer in America is 1 felony arrest a year. 1 more significant arrest a year, meaning most of what they do, 99% of what they do is stand on street corners and harass people. Often poor people, often people of color are the ones who get harassed the most, right? The stop and frisks, the traffic stops, all that shit. But even if you take the racial aspect out of it, which you never really should, but even if you want to go beyond just that, why should they be out there harassing people for practically nothing? What? Loitering, sleeping in their car, being homeless is basically illegal in many states. But something else I want to get to is you should basically never call the cops. All right? Just don't do it. Because the odds of them either killing someone or arresting someone who shouldn't be arrested and destroying their lives are way too high for it to be worth it. I mean, think about the reasons that people call cops. I had someone call the cops to show up to my apartment because there was loud music playing, because I had a few people over. Now, Okay, if that goes right, if everything goes right in that scenario, they knock on the door and they go, hey, could you turn it down? And I go, oh, sorry. And then they walk away. So that's if everything goes right. If everything goes wrong, someone dies, someone gets arrested and put in prison for what? Loud music? Loud music followed by talking back to a police officer? Does that deserve, a long period of time in a cage? Are you fucking kidding me? It's insane to call guys with guns and women, but guys with guns has a nice ring to it. It's insane to call guys with guns to come deal with loud music or something you find mildly annoying. So don't do it, all right? They are not trained to deal with those situations. They're not trained to deal with mentally ill people, at least not trained well. And so if you see someone behaving bizarrely, that guy seems to be walking up to people and telling them that the devil told him that his ears are too big. And that's pretty weird. I better call the cops. Well, what do the cops do? They come up, they yell at that guy to put his hands up or something. And he then says, well, but my ears are too big to put my hands up. And then they, shoot him, attack him, arrest him, beat him. Who knows where it goes from there? If he's truly mentally unstable, he probably doesn't have a wallet or ID or things like that. So he'll end up locked up for days, maybe weeks. Who knows how his life will end up? Now, calling people to help him, such as mental health professionals, sure, that would be nice. That's what we should be doing. But go down the list of reasons you might call the cops or reasons people argue we need so many police officers, thousands in every city, people with guns just everywhere. Go through the reasons you might call the cops, all right? People often say, oh, well, there's someone threatening. Someone threatened me in an alley or something. Okay, well, in order to call the cops, that means you're already clear of the threatening situation. I assume you're not standing there with a guy being like, I'm going to stab you, man. And you're like, hold on. Police, please, there's a guy here saying he's going to stab me. Okay, so that means you're already out of the situation and now you just want the cops to go maybe kill this guy. Maybe, who knows what'll happen. I'm not saying I like that a guy is threatening anyone, but calling the cops, you're not in a situation where you could actually stop the threat in the moment. It would have to be long afterwards. And again, everything goes right, the cops come and arrest the guy who's threatening you, long after you've already been finished being threatened. Or everything goes wrong, and they come and they show up and they shoot you, maybe shoot him, maybe arrest both of you. Who the fuck knows? Let's see. Let's roll the dice and see what the fuck happens when we call the guys with guns. It's kind of like a fun game show, right? Let's call guys with guns and see what happens, see what transpires. Who knows? Maybe it'll go my way, right? Are you fucking out of your goddamn mind? It's bananas. It's crazy to ever call people with guns to deal with shit. Unless you are actively running from an axe murderer. You got the phone in one hand, you're fucking sprinting around corners, and you're like, there's a guy with an axe behind me. Okay, that is the one situation where you can call the police, and you're still kind of rolling the dice. But guess what? Okay, I'm fine with you calling the police in that incident, in that moment. But how many police would you need to deal with that moment in people's lives? Because it would almost never happen. Very rarely. And so you'd need a few police. You'd need like one SWAT team per city to be ready for the axe murderer chase incident that goes down once every 5 years. These are incredibly rare circumstances. So cops should be few and far between, and they should be specialized. For everything else, we should have other teams of people that do not have guns that deal with these things. Mental health professionals. If the spousal abuse is another one. And that's another one where I called the cops because I heard, people were yelling next door and I thought the woman might be in trouble. And you're like, okay, that's very nice that you thought that was a good idea. But think of what then ends up happening. The cops come. If everything goes right, they maybe arrest the abusive spouse. If everything goes wrong, they shoot one or both of them. Maybe they believe the spouse and arrest the person who's being beaten. arrest the woman who's the victim. Who knows what they'll do? So again, everything can go wrong in that situation. It can be terrible. There's famous stories that you can read about in the news, right? Where a woman calls the cops because she sees someone suspicious in her neighborhood, and then the cops show up. She goes running out to say, "Thank goodness you're here," and then they shoot her. I mean, that's the thing is people call the cops. Tamir Rice, right, was a kid with a fake toy gun, and he was sitting in a park. And then the people that called the cops didn't know it was a toy gun. So I get why they thought, hey, there's a kid. What was he, 6 or 8 years old? Hey, there's a kid with a gun in a park. That's bad. Let me call the cops. But then what might go down? Well, the cops might pull up and kill the kid, which they did. Or they might pull up and arrest the kid. But he's standing there with a toy gun. Do you really need a 6-year-old in prison for standing there with a toy gun? There's too much. It's just an incredible roll of the dice to ever call the cops unless you've got some serious shit going down. Unless it's a hostage negotiation or something. And even then, they usually end up killing a couple of the hostages. Hostages. I've seen a few movies. All right. Some of the hostages usually die. Selling drugs. Even if you saw someone selling drugs on a corner and you're like, well, I didn't like that, so I called the cops. Someone saying that Tamir Rice was 12. All right, I guess so. Either way, doesn't really matter. It's still completely fucked up. But selling drugs. All right, well, first of all, there's the fact that almost all drugs should be decriminalized, because that doesn't mean everything needs to be legalized, but for doing something to your own body, there's no reason you should go to jail. Now, you should maybe get help. Someone should send you to a place where you can get help for your drug addiction, maybe. But there's no reason you need to be locked in a cage because you are addicted to a substance that made you feel good. That's just completely fucked. So yeah, most of these situations, and then you get to like the big one. Like I said, I'm fine with them having a little team of people to deal with the axe murderer running around the corner, but then you get to things like solving murders, and you're like, okay, there should be cops to solve murders, but cops that solve murders, what do? They're not chasing someone with guns usually. They're usually trying to piece together little pieces of evidence. They spend most of the time on a laptop. They're not in the streets with their gun on their hip most of the time. So again, you don't need police on every corner. Most of the jobs that police do should not be done by police. Fucking car stops, your license is crooked, you're speeding. All right, have speeding ticket police, speeding ticket people that don't have guns on them, that pull someone over and give them a ticket. All right. So there should be. Our policing system needs to be completely just erased, and you recreate a different style of system. And this conversation, even this discussion, even if you disagree with me, this discussion should be had. We should sit here and talk about this. We should talk about the 1,000 people that the U.S. police kill every year, while in other countries it's like 5 or 0. Denmark and Switzerland in 2018, it was 0. Their cops killed no one. Can you believe it? You assume they'd kill a couple just to stay in practice, right? Well, you gotta kill a few people. You're not doing your job otherwise. But you can't even have this discussion. This fucking, you flip on your media, they won't even have this discussion. The fact that our policing system originated from slave patrols and now does basically the same thing. It cements the class hierarchy, and when they become most active is when that hierarchy is threatened. That's when the cops get most active. And in terms of these protests, I've seen it. You've seen video if you haven't been down there. A lot of these cities, the cops are now aiming with their tear gas and rubber bullets, and aiming at press, aiming at medics, aiming at legal observers, and arresting them. I personally know journalists who have been incredibly injured from having rubber bullets shot at them, trampled, and this is becoming the norm. We have our police system is one of the largest military groups in the world. If you viewed them as a military, as an army, they're one of the largest in the world. And we have the largest prison state in the world. Most people per capita locked up. And I actually think it's the most people, period, locked up in the world. 5% of the world's population, 25% of the world's prisoners. It's a complete crime against humanity. And this conversation can't be had under mainstream airwaves. They'll discuss cutting $1 million out of the police budget, or they'll discuss painting Black Lives Matter on the road, or they'll discuss how there should be a body cam, or how maybe a police union has a little too much power. They'll have those discussions, but they won't get to the heart of the issue. Hey, everybody, that's been your moment of clarity. Keep fighting out there, and I'm doing these almost every day. And if you miss one, just go to leecamp.com. Every day you can go to leecamp.com and find the news story, the new video. Thank you so much, and please subscribe at youtube.com/momentofclarity. That's my newer channel. Also, all my other stuff's at the Redacted Tonight YouTube channel. Keep fighting.